Shadow Priest, the spec that seems to not be able to be gotten right every expansion. We have new versions of Shadow Priest, and this time Shadow Priest has had about 3 versions while we are currently in the current one. And we need to talk because I'm losing my mind, and that's not because Shadow Priest is about insanity, but that is because of I don't get it, man. I don't get it. This seems like my sympathy towards the devs that are working on this. This doesn't seem like an easy spec to get right, and that's what we're going to be talking about today in this video of the beta content, and we'll see exactly what that means because Shadow Priest needs help. But you do know who else needs help? Not really, but our Patreon platform with all the patrons that are supporting our content. Thank you very much, guys. This actually helps us a lot making these daily videos. And if you, dear viewer, like the type of content that we do, daily coverages on specs and everything that changes with the classes in Dragonflight, plus the podcast, plus the tier list, plus the main series, plus the streams and everything else, consider becoming a Patreon, checking the link down below in the description where you have a couple of tiers for patrons depending on exactly where you want to be at with some rewards for it. We recently had a Patreon talk and we're probably going to have one again in a month. Patreon wallpapers and discussions and Discord access to a specific group just for us patrons where we can talk about different things that we do during our creative process. And you would, of course, be directly supporting all of the work that we do here. All 3 of us, Lego, Marcelian, and myself as well, and we would be super grateful for it. Thank you very much, and let's go into Shadow Priest, because the general talent tree, although it was reworked some weeks ago into something that's a lot better, has received some more changes, mostly because Shadow Mend is gone, I think, from all priest specs altogether, but at least now you can cast holy spells without being taken out of shadow form. Mechanically, maybe that's better. I don't know. I kind of like the theme of, you know, holy being separate from shadow, but I guess this is what we're going with. And a bunch of things have been moved around. Psychic Voice has taken its spot where Shadow Mend used to be to reduce the cooldown of Psychic Scream, while Phantasm has made its way here as well to make Fade remove all snare effects, which is kind of cool. Mind Control and Dominate Mind have become one with each other in a choice node, and they're basically the same spell, renamed differently, since Dominate Mind used to be an upgrade for Mind Control, letting you control the mind of one level above enemy from you for 30 seconds, and you can still control your own mind. So ideally, this is just a pet. Does not work on demons, mechanical, and so on and so forth. This is mostly like a world content kind of thing. Hey, you can have fun with controlling the minds. In the spot of Dominant Mind, you now have Tithe Evasion, allowing you to take a lot less damage from Shadow Word Death, which is always cool because you want to press Shadow Word Death and not take damage. Improved Mind Blast has been removed, and you get now a 2-point Throes of Pain in its place. Nothing changed down. You can still take 3 capstones if you desire to, or you get more utility. Obviously, Power Infusion, all that stuff is still there, and you'll likely always going to take it. On the middle side, Improved Flash Heal is in place of Leap of Faith, which was moved further down together with Move with Grace, and the choice node is now under Improved Flash Heals with Protective Light, the former talent that made you take reduced damage when you cast Shadow Mend on yourself. And From the Darkness Comes Light. This used to be a legendary, I think, or something. You get extra healing on Flash Heal when Shadow Word Pain deals damage. And you have Angelic Feather in the middle. Will probably always be taken because you kind of want the movement speed or body and soul in the old place, which is usually my personal favorite. And Halo and Divine Star is still here and have kind of no interaction with the specs. So hey, if you want to cast some holy spells, do some healing or some damage, you gotta do it. Spec talents, let's actually talk about this because we do need to get into it. There was always an issue with how Shadow Priest is having this talents designed because you were, in the past, kind of had to choose between throughput and utility or defensives. Now they're kind of on the same road, just underneath Devouring Plague. You have Dispersion and Silence, while in the middle you have very core mechanic Shadowy Apparitions. You can probably take all of these 3 and not feel too bad about picking any of them, but first of all, the choice node of Misery and Dark Void took the place of Auspicious Spirits and Tormented Spirits, which is something that's further down the talent tree. This is where we're starting to get into some of the issues that Shadow Priest has, where Dark Void is very undertuned compared to Misery, which is something that kind of Shadow needs in AoE. It needs a little bit of a better, simpler way to do AoE. spread dots, considering the dots are actually probably more important now in your rotation. And last time we mentioned that we have Coalescing Shadows instead of the Shadow Orbs that we thought we were going to get some time ago. And this is a whole new mechanic. Coalescing Shadows, although it sounds cool and I kind of like how it is, it seems to have some like issues when it comes to your rotation and prioritizing your spells and actually learning how to deal proper damage. It just makes things complicated. So what Coalescing Shadow does is makes Mind Seer and Shadow Word Pain damage have a 4% chance to grant you this Coalescing Shadows buff, and Mind Flay has a 15% chance to grant you a stack, and they all stack up to 3 times. Mind Blast and Mind Spike consume all of these shadows to deal 10% increased damage per stack, and when consuming at least one of these stacks, increase the damage of your periodic damage, so basically your dots, by 10% for 15 seconds. I mean, it sounds like it's really cool. We'll see exactly how it functions because every spell has a different version of generating these Coalescing Shadows, and it might not impact your rotation whatsoever, which feels weird because there are so many talents that go into this. For instance, we have Puppet Master on the left-hand side, which used to be in the general talent tree. Now it's here, and although it's not yet no longer yet implemented, it is implemented. Your Shadow Fiend and Mindbender grant you Coalescing Shadows each time they deal damage, so that's a lot of shadows. Damage from your shadowy apparitions have an 8% chance to grant you Coalescing Shadows. Now, I talked about before about the Auspicious Spirits and Tormented Spirits, which is now kind of in the middle right now in the talent tree, unless this is going to change. Tormented Spirits makes your Shadow Word Pain damage have a 5% chance to create a shadowy apparitions that float towards all targets, and Critical Strike increase this chance by 10%, while Auspicious Spirits just makes the shadowy apparitions deal more damage. So Tormented Spirits generates more of them, meaning that if you do go the Coalescing Shadows Puppet Master route, you would want more of those shadowy apparitions, so it's kind of like implying that you're going to be taking a specific talent even though you might not want to. Harnessed Shadows is also here implemented. Increase the chance for you to gain a Coalescing Shadow when dealing damage with Mind Seer and Shadow Word Pain, and you have 100% chance to gain a Coalescing Shadow when critically hit by an attack. This is probably more oriented towards PvP because you're likely not going to be hit by a melee attack or by a proper attack here. Then this goes down into Mindbender, which we had before with a previous capstone that's now in Inescapable Torment. It's been renamed and it's a 2-pointer. This is basically the Shadow Flame Prism. When you use Mind Blast and Shadow Word Death, your Mindbender teleports behind the targets and hits up to 5 targets for a decent amount of damage, and it increases the duration of your Mindbender. And it goes down into the capstone of Idol of Yasharaj, which now has an actual detailed tooltip, which I'm a little bit confused by because so basically what this means is summoning Shadow Fiend causes you to, or Mindbender causes you to gain a benefit based on your current target state and increases duration by 5 seconds if no state matches. Now, I'm not 100% sure how long this state lasts, if it's supposed to last however long it lasts, or if it's just a passive thing as long as Mindbender is around. First of all, if the target is healthy, you and your Shadow Fiend deal 5% additional damage, which is a decent damage increase. If the target is enraged, which is unlikely, we're thinking about like raids here, right? Because you're not gonna, like, how often is the target going to be enraged when Mindbender comes off cooldown? Because if you are playing in Mythic Plus, you will want this on cooldown. Even if you're playing in raids, if you're taking Mindbender, which reduces the cooldown to 1 minute, you want this as often as possible, specifically because you've also picked Inescapable Torment, which means that your rotation will go around Mindbender. So you cannot control what states that the targets are in unless you have multiple targets to choose from, which is unlikely, so you just get what you get. And maybe that's fine because Enrage makes you basically dispel the Enrage and increases your haste by 5%, also very good. But if the target is stunned, you generate 5 insanity every second. Stunned, that's definitely not gonna happen in raids. And if the target is feared, you and your Shadow Fiend deal 15% increased damage and do not break fear effects. Also not gonna happen in raid, but definitely gonna happen in PvP. So again, this feels like a PvP side of the talent tree, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, because I also like PvP, but this is one of the very few, if not the only talent trees that has clear PvP focused capstones. Because if you're taking this for PV, you're only getting 1 or 2 effects, and if the target is no longer healthy, if we're talking about raids, you're not getting that effect anymore either, so I don't understand exactly what's supposed to happen here. And right of Puppet Master you have Mental Decay, which was previously on the other side of the middle side of the tree, and under it now, as opposed to above, as we previously have, you have Shadowy Insight, with Dark Evangelism as well. And there's a lot of other things that have moved around in the talent tree, although in terms of design it kind of looks cool, and I am personally attracted to the Shadow Priest talent tree. It's looking really cool, but there are definitely issues underlying under the hood, and we can go around in terms of the capstones. Now you only have 4 capstones, which are the old god capstones. Idol of Cthulhu is still there, and the tendril lasts a little bit longer. Idol of Yogg-Saron is right middle on the right hand side. Basically, this with the current tuning makes it so that you can get the proc of this in single target once every 8 minutes, which is crazy. Once every 8 minutes, that's once per fight. That is not really cool tuned. And on the middle side, going from Mines here down into the capstones, you have a choice now between Dark Ascension and Void Eruption, which is another issue that Shadow has. First of all, you might think that, okay, you're not forced into playing Void Eruption, which is cool because you can change what the playstyle that you want to go for. Dark Ascension is a 1 minute cooldown, increases your non-periodic shadow damage by 25% for 20 seconds. That's it. That's all it does. It just increases dot damage, which is boring. I mean, it's a cool mechanic, but to be an ability that you cast for 1.5 seconds every minute instead of Void Eruption, I feel like it's missing the mark a little bit. Void Eruption is also very weird because as it stands right now, Void Eruption gives you Void Form, and Void Form gives you 10%, I think, tether damage or spell power. However, Shadow Form gives you 10% spell power and damage, and Void Form used to be 20%. And now it's down to 10%, and it replaces Shadow Form. So this is weird. This might actually be a DPS loss, or it's at least very controversial because it doesn't add on top of Shadow Form. I don't know if this is intended or not, or if it's supposed to be 10% on top of the Shadow Form's 10% to make it kind of competitive with Dark Ascension, so it doesn't just give you like 20 or 30% rather. And this is where we're, like I mentioned, this. Although it sounds cool on paper, the numbers and the way that it works underneath it, which you cannot tell from the tooltip, doesn't feel right to making the spec play properly. On the plus side, these two choice nodes go into Ancient Madness, which used to be a capstone, and it's now just an upgrade, which is good. Basically what this does is Void Form and Dark Ascension increase your critical strike chance by 10% for 20 seconds, and it's a 2-pointer, so it goes double, reducing it by 0.5 or 1% every second, which, okay, this was a cool mechanic for the old Void Form. I'm not a big fan of the current Void Form, but at least it's not a capstone anymore, it's just an upgrade, and this goes down into Auspicious Spirits and Tormented Spirits, which I mentioned before. And on the right hand side is enabled basically by Mind Spike, which has kind of been changed a little bit because last time, if I recall, it used to consume the dots on the target. Now it just blasts the target for Shadow Frost damage on a 1.5 second cast time with no cooldown and generates Insanity. And this is another part of the issues with Shadow Priest, where Mind Spike deals a lot of damage and might also replace Mind Flay. In terms of priority, does more damage than Mind Flay. However, Mind Flay has a bunch of talents that go into it, making it stronger, and it's unclear which are you going to use when. So this is part of the issue, maybe. And as Public stated, by the way, what I'm telling you right now is basically being tried and tested and theory crafted by the biggest brains of Shadow Priest, Public as well, and he made a very comprehensive post on the forums regarding all of the issues, bugs, and design problems with Shadow Priest that they could definitely, and you probably should read if you are interested in Shadow Priest. And as Public mentions as well in his post, Mind Spike is going to conflict with Mind Flay, and this gets us into a situation where the builders seem to be either on par or maybe stronger with the spenders, which is weird. It's counterproductive to what you would want for a spec to do. What are you building towards? You're not building to more damage because spenders are DPS loss if you don't cast the builders. So I don't know. Obviously this is tuning and this can change, so I hope it does change. So this continues on the right hand side with Surge of Darkness. Your Vampiric Touch and Devouring Plague damage have a chance to cause your next Mind Spike to be instant, cast, and deal 200% additional damage, and it stacks up to 3 times. So this can make Mind Spike explode in damage, so that's pretty cool. As a concept, we'll see how it turns out. Mind Melt goes down from here, where Mind Spike reduces the cast time of your next Mind Blast by 50% and increases its critical strike chance by 25%, stacking up to 2 times. And this buff lasts 10 seconds. Again, a lot of raw damage fueled into Mind Blast and Mind Spike that are basically builders, which is not bad to have damage into those, but I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just a little bit weird. You know what I'm saying? Going down from Mind Melt, we have Damnation and Void Torrent, both 1 minute cooldowns, both kind of, I don't know, lackluster. Damnation basically applies on the target Shadow Word Pain, Touch, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague, which could be good in cleave situations, could be good to save a couple of cooldowns. Yeah, so there you go. Void Torrent is still the same. Channel a torrent of void energy into the target, dealing decent amount of shadow damage over 3 seconds and generates a buttload of insanity, which is also good. Nothing really to say here. It's just, I don't know, it goes down into Insidious Ire, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the old Shadowlands Legendary. While you have your dots on the target, Pain, Devouring Plague, and Vampiric Touch, your Mind Blast deals 20% more damage. Once again, more damage into Mind Blast. And this goes down into Idol of N'Zoth, the, let's say, last Old God capstone damage dealt by Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague have a 20% chance to apply Echoing Void. Each time Echoing Void is applied, it has a chance to collapse, dealing a lot of shadow damage to AoE, which is really, really cool. And, I mean, I like the theme of the Old God mechanics. And, it's a lot. There's a lot of things going around with Shadow Priest right now, and there's a lot of things that seem like they need a little bit more work, which is not very reassuring. However, I do have to say that bar these issues, if these issues can be fixed, for me, Shadow Priest looks to be like probably one of the most interesting spellcasters in Dragonflight. As always, like whoever's designing the spec really has some cool old gaudy ideas, and I'm down for it. But they do have to like tune it properly, which is obviously, I know we're in beta right now and it matters, but it's so close. It's so close, man, and we can have an amazing spec. Definitely, if you want to know more about Shadow Priest, check Public's post on the forums, and definitely check the Warcraft Priest Discord as well. Thank you for watching the video. Thank you, patrons, for supporting the content, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classical retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.